Hello and welcome to Screaming on the Inside, episode 9. I am your host, Celeste. Thank you so much for joining us as ever. This episode, I am speaking with lead therapist Tracey Beynon. She works at our Sanctuary Lodge centre and has taken some time out of her very busy schedule to speak with me about some really interesting topics. It's a little bit different. I really hope you enjoy listening to Tracey's insights. She is so knowledgeable and very well loved in the UCAT team, and I really do think that you'll come away with a bit of knowledge about neurodiversity. We're also talking about roles that we play, all sorts of fun stuff. I won't go into it here, but we will be sending out some additional resources to you if you're signed up to our newsletter. So keep an eye out for that and let me know what you think. Hi, Tracey. It's really nice to have you here with us this week. Wonder if you'd like to be able to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, it's really nice to be doing this. I'm Tracey Beynon, and I'm the lead therapist at Sanctuary Lodge, one of the UK addiction treatment centres. I have been working in addiction treatment for about 10 years. I started off in community treatment, helping out in the methadone clinic in the local area, and doing some voluntary counselling to get my hours to qualify as a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was taken on as a key worker there, and then moved on to working in a rehab that was actually a day rehab, where clients had treatment for 9 weeks and came in every day. And then found myself yearning for the opportunity to work in residential rehab, and applied for Sanctuary Lodge, and here I am.
That's fantastic. What a journey. So
Yeah.
you've really worked your way up through the ropes, you know. I mean, did you always know that you had a passion for this line of work, or was it something that you kind of, some of us find ourselves falling into things and then actually find that, wow, this is a journey for me? What was that like for you?
Definitely. I had quite a lot of troubles with my mental health, particularly noticeable in my late 20s and early 30s, because I think that seems to be when it comes to a head for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I couldn't really afford top rate weekly counselling. Single mum, just trying to struggle through and spending all their money on substances to cope. And I thought, once I'd got myself straight and wasn't using substances anymore, I really needed to focus on my own mental health. So what best way to do it is do a counselling course and learn it myself.
Of course, we can learn our way out of it, right?
Exactly. And that's why I did so well in all the assignments. I just focused on myself as usual.
Right. Yeah.
And my first placement was in Open Road, the local drug and alcohol treatment centre. And that was just complete fluke. That's where I was sent, and that's what I did. And it literally, within a day of being in there, I just thought, I've got the bug.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is such a wonderful sort of a line of work, isn't it? And I really, what I love about it is so many people who work in this field have their own experiences and really come from that themselves. So there's this real, for me, I mean, I've not been doing this for long. My background is actually dentistry.
Oh, is it?
I was in dentistry for 20 years. And I also always had, because I've always been around addiction, I wasn't aware of my own addiction for a long time, but I always wanted to work in this field. And, it's taken me a lot longer to be, you know, fortunate enough to find myself in this position, but there's so many of us who work in this field, and it's so accessible to people, isn't it, that, you know, that do come from a difficult background or do come from addiction themselves. You know, I've been welcomed, you know, I was welcomed in my early recovery, you know, and given an opportunity, and I think that's really nice. A lot of compassion in this field of work, isn't it?
There's a lot of compassion, and I'm not sure anywhere else, any other line of work would take you seriously.
No, exactly that. And I can tell you now, not knocking dentistry, but it's not the same, you know.
No.
The people are wonderful, and you know, as I've said to you before, Tracey, not to embarrass you, but you know, everyone that I speak to that goes through, you know, comes out of Sanctuary Lodge always speaks so highly of you as a therapist, and I think it's important that you know that, and that you know that people that have worked with you always are so happy with the treatment, and you know, they go on mostly to have, you know, wonderful, you know, successful recoveries, and that must feel good, right? That's
really
why we do
does.
it. Yeah,
that's all that matters at the end of the day.
This is it. Yeah. And I wonder, actually, while we're on that topic of early recovery, I know we were talking before about, you know, the common things that I find working in alumni clients when they first come out of treatment, you know, those initial struggles that they have, those things that can sort of make them stumble sometimes when they've come out of treatment. They're out of that safety net, you know, they're out in the big, you know, bad world, and you know, suddenly recovery it's a different thing, isn't it, when you're out of treatment. And I know that one of the things that certainly I think we both agree on is sort of the family's role within addiction, and certainly the recovery from addiction. What's your sort of take on that? On sort of going back into perhaps a dysfunctional family situation after coming out of treatment? How can our ex-clients perhaps, you know, manage that more effectively?
I think it's so tough, because I think before someone goes into treatment, they've often played a certain role in the family or within their relationship, whether it be marriage or friendships, mother-daughter, whatever kind of relationship it is, they play a role, and often it can be the role of sort of quite of helplessness, and people those around someone can get used to looking after them and being cross with them, and taking them to appointments, checking, have you made this call, how much have you had to drink, where have you been, and they get, as much as they're miserable in that role and terrified, often they're comfortable in it. Yes. And then someone comes into treatment, and you know, we empower them, and they're actually seen for more than being an addict or an alcoholic, and they're offered sort of unconditional acceptance, and it's a bubble. And then these people do so well in learning their interpersonal effectiveness, how they communicate assertively, healthy boundaries, respecting other people's boundaries. And then they go home and they go back to exactly the same environment that they left. And I know loved ones do their absolute best. You know, they'll make it a dry house, they'll get rid of all the wine glasses in the house, and go to Al-Anon and all that, but they haven't done that deep-rooted work on how they function together. We obviously will offer a conjoint where the family and the client can have a chat and talk about how they're going to move forward and get things off their chest, but that's just scratching the surface. And then people go home, and the poor loved ones, they don't know what's hit them often. They don't know how to be. They don't trust them yet, which is fair enough. They don't know everything that the client's been through. They haven't experienced what the client's been through, so they have not had that healing like the client's had. There's still anger and resentment. And I think most of us, addicts or not, we're not taught how to have healthy relationships in school like we ought to be.
Oh, no.
And it can be all over the place. And I know I sent you some information about Stephen Cartman's drama triangle.
Yes.
That he didn't come up with the drama triangle for addicts specifically, but I think it really highlights the roles that so easily people fall into when they're in these dysfunctional relationships.
Yeah, this is fantastic. Just so everyone knows, that this information that Tracey sent across to me kindly will be available to everyone in the show notes for the podcast, and I probably break it down into sort of a blog type thing that everyone can have access to, because I mean, when you break it down, it's more obvious than people think, isn't it, really? And when I speak to people who have come out of treatment, I do often find that they've gone in one person and come out a completely different one. And like you say, that transition, our lovely alumni have been guided through that process, like you say. So that they've been on that journey, yet to the family members, it's like you say, it's completely overwhelming and difficult. And I think that but correct me if I'm wrong, but there can also be this situation where, and I know I had this in my own experience with my dad, it was almost easier for me when he was sick than when he was well. Yeah. Because when he was sick, I like you say, I was scared and it wasn't pleasant, but I almost had a control over it. Yeah. I felt like I was being useful in a crisis. It was crisis to crisis to crisis. But if there was a time where suddenly you're out of the crisis and you seem to be doing well, it's like I was always waiting for the other foot to drop. Yeah. And that was more traumatizing than actually being in the crisis, because again, no expert here, but you're given tools in crisis to be able to cope in the moment, those stress responses. When all of that stops and you're left and you're like, whoa, that I mean, what I went through with my dad is minuscule compared to what families must go through when they've had years and years of addiction in their family, and then their loved one comes back and they're well. You're well. Now what do we do? Yeah. And
also, I think looking after an addict can end up being a full-time job, and then some, because even if you're not physically caring for someone, the emotional and mental space it takes up is every waking minute, which can be a lot of waking minutes when you're not sleeping because you're worrying. And then when that person's better, I think loved ones can almost lose their identity because they're not the carer anymore. They don't know who they're meant to be anymore. It's like, where am I in this?
Yes, absolutely. It's a lot, isn't it? It really is. It's a lot. And I think, I certainly try and encourage people who I speak to who are in these situations to. It's about, for me, it's about boundaries, it's about conversations, it's about communication, and people who have been in treatment and who are in recovery, understanding that things aren't going to go back to normal necessarily straight away or as quickly as they might like. It does take time and it takes action for that trust to be,
it really does,
earned back. And again, it's with compassion. Nobody asks to be in addiction. At least, I myself am in recovery. I fully understand what it's like to have to gain the trust of people who have lost faith in you, and it's not your fault that you found yourself in addiction, but the consequences are such that unfortunately these dynamics become affected. I mean, what about the family support then? Is that, would you mind telling me a little bit about what that might look like for the family, in case we've got anyone who would like their family to engage with any of the family support? What would that look like?
So that's I know from Sanctuary Lodge, it's every other Sunday via Zoom for an hour.
Okay.
I always reassure the family that it's not actually anyone that works in Sanctuary Lodge that facilitates the group, because I think families often worry that we're going to tell the loved ones or speak about their loved ones in group things. So it's an outside facilitator who's never met us and never met the clients.
Oh, interesting.
And what usually happens is that the people attending the session will share what's going on for them, and then others will identify and they will suddenly realise that they're not alone. They're not the only one going through this.
Yes.
And I think they quite often are able to support each other in hammering home the message of how important tough love and boundaries are. Because I think, especially parents of addicts, there's so much guilt that comes with any kind of parenting. You always think you're the worst parent and regret the fact you swore in 1999. I think a lot of guilt that they're not good enough holds parents back from saying, no, this is how it's going to be from now on.
Yeah.
And being told that that's enabling behaviour, and actually, how about you look after you, let your loved one look after them and meet somewhere in the middle, is so alien and so scary at the thought of putting that in place. Because let's face it, families, the core of it all is families are scared that their loved one's going to die.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
It is,
and when
absolutely.
It is.
Yeah.
And when you tell a loved one, back off, let them figure it out, let them do their recovery, and if they don't adhere to your firm boundaries, then you have to let them step back with love.
Yeah.
And let them find their way.
Yeah.
Families are like, well, what happens if they die in the process? And that's a really hard question to answer. And that's why we can never tell a family member what their boundaries need to be.
No, that's right.
I mean, my daughter has had to have a stint in rehab, unfortunately. And she was causing a terrible time at home, quite abusive behaviour linked to her addiction, police involvement and things like that. And it was breaking me, like, you know, my mental health was really suffering. And I had to just be really brave one day and say, if any of this happens in my house again, I will be removing you from our family home.
Wow. Yeah.
I thought it was going to be the hardest thing I'd ever have to do. It wasn't. What I realised once I removed her from the family home was what I was living with was harder.
Yes.
And I'd had sleepless nights worrying because she was street homeless for a little while. And, you know, she got worse before she got better.
Yeah.
But she tells me now that she genuinely feels that saved her life.
Wow.
I'm not saying that that's going to happen for everyone, and I would never push that on anyone. Because I know there's many situations where things don't turn out all rosy and great.
That's it.
But that's just my version of when I had to put myself first and what that meant to my suffering daughter.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. It's really brave to share things so personal, and if I may, I had very similar experience myself, and we can, like you say, we can only ever talk about our own experiences, your experience, my experience, it may not be the same as others, but I think it's important that we share them. My father was an addict. He's an alcoholic, and I also realized when things got really difficult, when his behaviors and his emotional manipulation was really starting to impact my well-being and my life, to the point where I was losing relationships, jobs, my mental health was really suffering, so forth. I took the decision, tough love, to say, well, actually, I can't be here for this anymore. So if you want help, Dad, I'm there for you. If you can't accept your drinking as a problem, then I'm afraid I'm done. And I followed through. 9 months, didn't speak to him, didn't field his calls. I had to keep complete distance and work on my own recovery, mental health recovery at that time, not addiction recovery. And we did lose him, and I knew that there was a possibility that was always going to happen. And getting that call and almost, if, well, you know, I won't go too much into that particular moment, but I still kind of have moments where I think, did I do enough? But actually I know that I did everything I could. And I would say to anyone out there, you know, because I know a lot of people in recovery from addiction would have had this experience themselves with other family members. It's a family disease, you know, we don't become addicts in a vacuum, you know, and I completely side with you on the fact that it's tough love. I've received tough love. You know, I got well because my mum turned around to me, and, you know, she's not one really for confrontation. And she turned around to me one day and said, I don't even like you anymore. Like, who are you? This isn't, you know, and I needed that. Definitely. You know, tough love. And you know, I'm not a parent. I can't even begin to imagine what that must be like. It's incredibly brave to put down those boundaries. And I'm always very keen to tell people that it's okay. It's okay to do that. It's okay to put yourself first. And
I think if you think of the phrase tough love, okay, it's tough being on the receiving end of that, but it's so much tougher to give it.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's the purest act of love that you can do.
Yeah, and sometimes it doesn't come without consequence, you know. Unfortunately, my family did not understand what I was doing and why I was doing it, and I'm still held responsible for what happened to my dad. I know that's not the case, and I'm at peace with that decision now, but I still, you know, I it really pains me when I hear other people going through this and they feel that they can't walk away out of loyalty or you know, because they feel that if anything happened they would be responsible. No one has control or power over this disease, you know, and it's that surrender. And it's, again, it's really funny how this mirrors what we have to do in recovery, isn't it? You know, surrender, acceptance, you know, and so, you know, I hope that, you know, that has helped anyone out there sort of listening about, you know, coming out of treatment, going back into a perhaps slightly dysfunctional dynamic. I unfortunately, we don't have time to go deep into the roles. I mean, is there anything else you'd like to add while we hear about that?
I just think that if you are listening and you want to access the link around the drama triangle, do read it. The second part of it's probably not as appropriate, but the first page of it is so spot on. If any of you are playing the role of persecutor, rescuer, or victim, you've got to get off that triangle, and the only way you'll get off it is with firm boundaries. So if you think that your home life is boundaryless, have a sit down and write down, what are your boundaries? What can you expect within that relationship? What can you accept in that relationship? What can't you accept? And ask your loved one to do the same, and have a little family meeting one Sunday afternoon. Make a nice bowl of pasta and sit down and say, this is what I need and this is what I don't need. What do you need? And where can we meet in the middle? Like, that's so healthy. It sounds a bit, I was going to swear then, sorry. It sounds a bit naff.
Oh, you can swear, don't you worry.
Okay. I was going to say it sounds a bit wanky. But actually, just to have an awkward, uncomfortable conversation like that, for half an hour can be a game changer. Like, you know, you feel uncomfortable waiting, smelling a crap when you're queuing for your alcohol at 8 a.m. So why not feel uncomfortable having a conversation with your wife about what you can and can't put up with?
You know what? I think that's a brilliant idea. I might do that with my partner, you know. Even if we do sound a bit wanky, I don't mind. No, but honestly, joking aside, I mean, I'm sort of browsing through it now, and I will make it available to everybody. I think this is such an amazing resource. I think it breaks things down in such an accessible and easily understood way. And I wonder, you know, again, you know, feedback, please. You know, what one of these roles do you feel that you fall into? You know, what dynamics are happening in your family? I'd be really interested to hear from you. So I think we'll definitely be coming back to this. I think that, you know, sometimes when our lovely alumni come out of treatment and go back into you know, real life in inverted commas, you know, that is a huge transition, and I'm always looking for ways that the alumni team can help, you know, make that easier for people to navigate, right? So no, thank you so much, Tracey. It's absolutely amazing.
Can I just add one little thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
I use my knowledge of the drama triangle as a relapse prevention tool.
Okay.
So I know what my favourite role is. Mine's persecutor.
Okay.
And when I notice the feelings that connect me with being persecutory, I know I've got a potential to pick up on those.
Yeah.
So I can then trace it back and realise I'm being a persecutor, and realise my boundaries have been too rigid or too squishy.
Yes, that's really interesting. I don't even have to read the small print to know that I'm a victim.
Yeah.
So if I start falling into victim mode, you know, I already know that something's not quite right. Or if I have the, you know, we all know this, I don't even have to explain this, but you know, when you start having imaginary arguments with people in your head, you know, that victim mentality, that's really excellent. And I think that hopefully a lot of people listening will be able to look at that and you know, certainly associate themselves with at least one of them. Is it true that we can jump from one to other, or do we tend to have one fixed?
We normally end up playing all three.
Okay.
So if I feel victimised, I'll then have a PHA, I call it, a pretend head argument.
Yes.
And then get myself into persecutor mode rather than feel victimised. Then feel guilty for calling people a bastard, and then go into rescuer mode to soothe it all and make it all better.
So let's just do all three. Why not? You know, typical addict. Can't have one. Gotta have all three. Oh, brilliant. Well, thanks very much, Tracey. That will be, like I say, available for everyone to take a good look through. There's even a little script here as well.
Yeah.
So if you really wanted to, you could, you know, have a little play. Looks really good. Excellent. Okay. Shall we talk about neurodiversity? Yes. So first of all, what is neurodiversity?
Well, I find it really hard to explain neurodiversity. Maybe it's because I am neurodivergent.
Oh, hello, me too. Nice to meet you. Yeah, it's a big word, isn't it? It covers a lot, but in a nutshell.
It's the concept that when it comes to the human brain and the nervous system, people don't all end up the same. And so that would encompass the different processing skills of someone with autism, the different processing skills and the speed of processing skills of someone with ADHD or ADD, which is the ADHD without the hyperactive element to it. And it's not an illness, it's not a disability, it's a difference in the way our brains and our nervous systems respond to stimuli. So you'll often find that people that are neurodivergent are highly anxious because just a certain, you know, sounds, colours, lights, vibe in a room impact them a lot more, a lot stronger than they would someone who we call neurotypical, who is considered normal, and I'm saying that in inverted commas.
Big inverted commas, yes. But for the senses, for the purposes of this, there is what is considered to be normal. It's a parameter, isn't it? Or right, okay. I'll dig a hole for myself here if I keep going on that one. But normal is a thing in this sense of the word,
So the reason why I'm so fascinated about neurodivergence or ADHD and autism is because, well, I've had a bit of a journey with it myself. And it has run alongside my journey of addiction treatment. And also being a mother of a daughter with fairly late teen diagnosis of autism and early 20s diagnosis of ADHD. When she was diagnosed and I started reading up on it, it was like, duh, like how did I not realise that?
Light bulb moment,
and what a relief. Maybe I wasn't such a crap mother after all. And then the more I looked into it and looked at why I hadn't picked up on it before, and spoke a lot, went on forums and spoke to lots of other parents of of youngsters that are neurodivergent, I started to realise that the reason I hadn't picked up on stuff, because it wasn't so unusual to me, because I'm actually neurodivergent.
Right.
But that was just grumbling away in the background, kind of me not connecting with it, a lot of denial.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember my daughter even saying to me, "Mum, you're more autistic than me."
Thanks.
What happened was I went for some, I'm on and off with my therapy. I don't have it religiously every week of every month of every year.
Sure.
When I need it, I'll pick up. And I thought I'd try a new therapist, and was just drawn to her because she looked like someone I used to know on the counselling.
Why not? You know,
yeah,
they're just good enough reason.
And unbeknownst to me, her day job, because she obviously does private practice in the evenings like I do, her day job is working with teenagers that are neurodivergent.
Right.
So it's quite helpful for me to talk about my worries about my daughter and things like that. But we were often discussing my emotional regulation, how I can regulate my emotion perfectly like a fully functioning adult at work, mm-hmm. where there's firm boundaries and rules and regulations and I know where I stand, but outside of work, functioning in an adult relationship and running mm-hmm. a home, I don't function very well.
Right.
And eventually she diagnosed me with being autistic.
Oh, wow.
Which was about a year ago. And
wow.
it was such a shock, but not. Like
right.
it was just waiting for me to click, really. I just needed someone to spell it out to me.
Yeah.
And since then, she's put me on the waiting list to be assessed for ADHD too. And I think it's pretty obvious. Now I know more about it. And through that, what I started to do was read a lot about the link between addiction and particularly ADHD, right. or undiagnosed ADHD more so, and came across a fantastic man called Gabor Mate.
Oh, I love Gabor Mate.
I know. I want him to be my dad.
Isn't he wonderful?
He's
guys, if you don't know who this person is, get on YouTube. Gabor Mate, Gabor Mate, I think. Yes. He's fabulous. He's done a lot of work on addiction. Actually, some of his theories are wonderful.
Yes.
Anyway, I digress. We can go on about that on another podcast.
Honestly,
but please tell me more.
He's life changing.
He's fabulous.
He does loads of blog podcasts with Russell Brand.
Oh, great!
Yeah, and he's a physician as well as an author, and he very late in life was diagnosed with ADHD mm-hmm. After writing an article about a woman who had being diagnosed late and realised that it described him as well.
He was like, ding, that's me.
Yeah, and he hasn't scientifically proven this, but he does bandy around this figure. Don't quote me on it. This is Gabor Mate. And he says that he reckons that 80% of addicts have undiagnosed ADHD.
Oh, that's a big old number.
It is. Personally, I don't think 80% of the clients that are in the building at the moment have undiagnosed ADHD, but I wouldn't, there'd be quite a lot.
I was just going to say, even if it's not 80 specifically, we are still looking at a potential, link there. And again, just to be clear, we're not suggesting that, we can't say whether you do or you don't, but I think it's a really interesting talking point. I really do. And again, professionally, I think it's really helpful for us to learn about these things. And I think personally as well, because there might be someone listening to this, we'll go more into it in a minute, but there might be someone listening to this, much like Gabor did when he wrote the book and realized that, and when you start to realize, well, actually this is applying to me. I've had a similar experience. I'm coming up to a year sober, and I said to you, didn't I, when we were talking before the show, you know, I've experienced some really big issues with my processing of my environment, hypersensitivity, irritability with noises. I can't tolerate an environment that I used to. And again, I'm not going to self-diagnose myself, but pretty sure there's something going on there, you know. And I can, you know, why don't you tell me before I won't waffle on about it, but why don't you tell me a little bit about what is it then that potentially causes that causation?
Gabor Mate believes that it's a result of a stressful early life.
Okay.
So that can be stress in the womb.
Yeah.
It can be, you know, because, you know, they do now know that an unborn child will know how the mother is feeling.
Oh yeah, it's the release of stress hormones, isn't it? And things like that. And also, it's like I've heard theories about the traumatic birth and those very, very early bonding moments. Certain hormones are released, and if they're not, or too much, then that can cause an issue.
Definitely. An anxious home.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that is not to blame parents.
No.
You know, I don't blame my parents. I mean, and obviously there's a difference between autism and ADHD. Autism is more the processing, and ADHD is more do you know what? I'm not even going to try to explain. I
think what we might do, because this is a big topic, okay?
It is.
So we're not even going to pretend to try and cover everything in a sort of 20, half an hour segment. However, we will touch on it, and there will be some more information again available. I'll break it down. We'll provide you with some helpful bullet points, and also there's a test that you can do as well that I've actually got a link to, which I'm sure Tracey will tell us more about. Please do carry on.
So I think what's been really wonderful, I stress I'm not a diagnoser and I'm not a specialist, but just with what I have experienced myself, I often just have this radar. So I'll be having my first one-to-one with a client, and just getting to know them a little bit, and hoping that they'll click with me so they can start trusting me. And sometimes it just screams in my head. And I will often ask, have you got a diagnosis of ADHD?
Right.
And sometimes I'll get a yes. And are you taking your meds? No. Right.
Of course.
Right. And sometimes I'll get no, what is that? Or sometimes I'll get no, but I've always wondered.
Yeah.
And what I tend to do is give clients an ADHD self-report checklist, just to have a look at.
Yeah.
And if they tick quite highly, then I might say to them, once you've completed treatment, you may want to consider asking for an assessment. I'm not saying you will be assessed with it, because I am not the specialist. And we've had clients that have been in treatment for 90 days where they've been able to organise their assessment via Zoom, through certain organisations that organise that. There is about an 18-month waiting list in most areas on the NHS.
Yes, because I think there's been a huge increase in people self-referring, hasn't there? There really does. You know, I think maybe some people are thinking, oh, it's just the buzzword right now, but actually I think it's really important that people feel empowered to actually come forward and, you know, start getting these diagnoses, because if you are suffering with, you know, either the processing side of things, you know, or any other elements of neurodivergence, it can really impact your life. And I think it's a shame the waiting times are so long, but I think it's just worth, like you say, like having someone like yourself who is there to actually just say, well, actually, you might want to get this looked at. They might have spent years thinking that and had no one to say, it's okay. Actually, you might want to look into this a bit further.
Definitely. And I just think as well that okay, so it's an 18-month waiting list, but you've gone this long without being diagnosed.
Yeah, exactly.
So you might as well just get on the waiting list. But also, not everyone that's diagnosed with ADHD is prescribed medication. You know, medication isn't a silver bullet. It's a small part of being able to regulate thoughts and feelings and stay awake long enough or not be awake quite so much, depending on your version. And no two people with ADHD are the same. So what it does do is it often sends people on a journey to research ADHD. And once we're self-aware, it's like everything becomes more clear. And when self-compassion is so important in recovery,
so important.
Once you think, well, actually, that's not me being an absolute arsehole, or maybe I'm not lazy, or maybe I'm not useless because I'm late for everything. Maybe I'm not chaotic because I'm stupid.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not a pain in the arse because I'm a bad person. You know, all of that kind of stuff. It's like, well, actually, this is a reason. And I know as an addict, we will then go, well, now I've got to be let off the hook. And that's the addict brain now, right? Well, you know, and it's having that balance of going, okay.
Do you know what? I'm glad you said that. I really am. Like, it's not, you know, I always go back to one of my favorite podcasts. There's a guy on there. He suffers with mental health issues, and he always says, guys, you know, mental health isn't your fault, but it is your responsibility.
Exactly.
And, you know, again, you know, personal experience, you know, I've become much more self-aware around my own neurodivergence and how that impacts on my relationship with my partner, for instance.
Yeah.
So an example for me is I will be much like you at work, brilliant. I can function, I'm confident, I'm likable, you know, I vibe at work, right? Because of those boundaries. And I know where I am, I know what I'm doing. I don't have to, it's all there in front of me. I just have to do what I'm told to do. Easy. I cannot, it takes me nearly 2 hours to travel home from work. Even with that time to decompress and get into home mode, I cannot speak to my partner as soon as I get through the door. I need half an hour time on my own to decompress, and then I have to go to her. She cannot come to me because I feel really trapped in. And then I get really snappy. It's just a really, really small example. But instead of me being snappy and being an arsehole, I've had a conversation with her around it and said, I am sorry, but this is how I feel. And we've made, we've just changed our routine up. Right. So she knows that she can't come running in with a cuddle. And as lovely as that is, you know, everyone would love to be greeted like that. To me, that's a fucking nightmare. I'm like, no, can't. I need to get through the door. I need to like breathe, get a shower, and then I'm ready. I will come to you. I'm like a little animal. Like, I need to come to you first. So it is about having conversations, but how can you have those conversations if you don't have any insight into your own behaviours?
Exactly.
Right? You've got to start somewhere. And I think just having this conversation is a wonderful way for people at home to be like, oh, maybe that is something I could look into.
The
you know,
power of the internet.
Get on a YouTube
is power.
stuff. It is, knowledge is power. You know, I mean, sometimes, you know, it didn't help me with my addiction, but I think this is something completely different. I think it is something where knowledge can be empowering, actually. You know, and it's not another thing, you know, that needs to be fixed. You know, it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. You can still function in the world, but actually just knowing that you're not alone, perhaps finding things, you know, I find a lot of help just by going and researching and finding little self-help tips that other people have used. I do this. Okay, it's really annoying. I don't necessarily need to go and get immediate help medically, but I would like to know how to manage this situation easier. This person's man, and it's just that community, isn't it? And talking about it.
Definitely.
You know, I'm waffling on. I do tend to do that. But it's just such an interesting topic, I think. It is. And I think it is going to be something that a lot of people do have some resonance with.
And I think it can be a relapse prevention tool.
Yeah. Okay.
Because when you start acknowledging all the things that you struggle with and why, then maybe you won't use on that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's about putting, like we do in recovery, don't we? We put something between ourselves and the first drink or the first substance. You know, it's a pause, it's a reflection, and then a responding rather than reacting. Yeah.
I mean, I just think I've built a life for myself now because I understand myself. So I'm not quite so chaotic in my home life because I've put in some systems that work for me to make sure I'm not late all the time, and to make sure that I don't lose things all the time, and things like that. Really this time 15 years ago, I'd have thought that was all incredibly dull. But I've now found a way that's got some structure, and is supportive to me. Because if I'm out of control and chaotic, how long am I going to stay well?
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that, you know, again, you know, the alumni listening to this, you are already out there in a position where you've already done so much hard work on creating more structure in your lives, creating a program for you to maintain sobriety and to move forward in the world. And you know, what a wonderful opportunity to find more things that you can make easier in your life.
Definitely.
You don't recover, you don't go into recovery and then your work is done.
No.
You don't go, well, I've done my program, I'm sober, I can just kick back and relax. This is lifelong work, and it's exciting, and it should be liberating, and it should be empowering. So, you know, use that. You know, if you're really egging forward and you've got those pink clouds and you're really enjoying this newfound sort of clarity of being in recovery, I think that investigating things further and learning more and more about yourself. I have learned more about myself in the last 10 months than I ever knew about myself in the 36 years before.
And it's phenomenal. So much fun.
It's so fun.
If you think about it, as addicts, we love talking about ourselves. We love learning about ourselves. We're self-obsessed.
Yes.
No, it's part
me? No, not me. Not at all.
So why not make you your favourite hobby and go and research everything about yourself?
Yes.
And find strategies. And if they don't work, find another one. Like, it's really exciting.
I think so. I really do. We probably sound a bit mad, don't we? But I think it is. I love getting these revelations about myself. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, but that's okay. You know, part of it is being uncomfortable and learning to be with that. And it all, for me, and you said it earlier, I am militant about it. Self-compassion has to be at the center of all of this. Accountability, yes.
Yeah.
But self-compassion, you know, smother yourself in it, you know, because you deserve it. And I think if we just keep talking about these things, and, you know, if alumni feel that they can have these conversations with their family members, or, you know, even like you say, I'm going to send this out to everyone as well. It's this is the autism spectrum quotient test that I've got here. Is there an ADHD one as well?
There is an ADHD one, yes. Okay. I'll send you the ADHD one.
Would love that. I
think a link. It's a checklist.
Oh yeah, brilliant. Yeah, let's do that. I think that would be great. Yeah, we'll send all of that out and have fun with it. You know, we'll probably put it on our UCAT resources page. It can sit there and it can be used by anyone who wants to come and have a look, and maybe some signposting options there as well. I think you may be able to do a self-referral now for these initial consultations. Again, the waiting list is long, but I do believe that certainly for ADHD you don't actually need to go through your GP anymore, which is quite, one of my friends has just done that. So anyway, there are means and ways should you feel that you need any more support.
On the Facebook page, put your autism score. I got 47.
I did mine. I got 34.
Right. Okay.
They were like, we think you might have you might be on the spectrum. In fact, you're very likely to be on the spectrum. I'm like, well, that's not at all surprising. No, thanks so much, Tracey. I really hope we can come back to this, and really, really appreciate your insights. Thank you.
No worries.
a lot of people feel that they have friends and family out there and they could ask for help if they needed it, but they still feel lonely, even knowing that.
I get
and is there any, I mean, we don't have to do anything with you on loneliness, but if you've got any insights into loneliness in recovery that you might want to share with us, or not so much?
I mean, the thing that springs to mind is that, of course, when you haven't got you, you haven't got anyone.
Oh.
And if you're not connecting with yourself, with compassion, and with honesty, then of course you're going to be lonely. And that's why you have to make connecting with yourself with compassion a daily priority. And I really like that, Tracey. I really do. I think that we're not very good at being kind to ourselves, are we, really, as addicts? And I think it's, for me, you all have permission to treat yourself with that kindness. You may not have been shown it in the past, but it doesn't mean that you can't, do that for yourself. And, loneliness, I've probably felt the most lonely in my life in a room full of people. Definitely. Right. So I do have a blog that will be released alongside this, looking into loneliness, theme of loneliness and recovery. And it also looks at the difference between loneliness and solitude. There is a difference, solitude in your own company, where you are connected with yourself and you're okay in that space with yourself, can actually be really nourishing, and it can actually be really important in recovery. But like you say, if you're not connected, you feel disconnected with yourself, you feel disconnected, then that loneliness can start to creep in, and if you're not in the right space to kind of sit with it and move past it, it can become quite debilitating. So and they do say that loneliness is one of the biggest killers, don't they? I mean, I've done a lot of reading on the topic, just purely because it's something that I wanted to look into for the blog, and to make sure that I had a little bit of background knowledge. And it's becoming such an enormous issue for certainly the elderly. And the vulnerable adults, and I would put people in recovery potentially in that group. We are vulnerable to loneliness. One of the biggest things that happens in early recovery is that we lose a huge part of our social network, right? We're not going to be hanging around with the same people. We might find that we don't have a lot of sober friends to immediately to connect with when we come out of treatment, or if we don't go into treatment, when we start going in the rooms. And for me, I would just encourage anyone in recovery to stay connected with people. The people that don't make it, in my experience, being working with alumni, is the people that try to do it on their own. Definitely. You can't get well in a vacuum. And it's fully agree there. And that's, and sometimes I know what it's like. You want to be left alone, you want everyone just to piss off and leave you alone, but that's okay every now and then. But really, you need to know that you can pick up that phone and speak to someone. So I would encourage you all to sort of certainly keep an eye out for anyone that you think might be lonely, and reach out to them too. Right? Anyway, Tracey, I really want to thank you for your time with us today. It has been so amazing. The topics we've covered today, I think, have been really, really interesting, and I think about them. It's been, and just getting to know you as well, and allowing our listeners to get to know a little bit more about you, and what happens with regard to your approach to treatment. And you've got such a compassionate approach, and that's really noticed. So thank you so much, Tracey, for your time, and I am more than sure we're going to be having you back. Anytime. I absolutely loved getting to know you a bit after the phone calls and the emails going backwards and forwards, and I've really loved talking about this. And like I said before, I can talk about these subjects till the cows come home. I've really, really, really enjoyed it, and I hope even if one person's got something out of it, that would be wonderful. That's all I say. I'm sure it'll be more than one person, Tracey, but thanks again, and we'll have you back soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Tracey for taking time out of her busy schedule to speak with us. It was so wonderful to chat with her, and I hope you got something out of that conversation. Again, as I said, keep an eye out. We'll be sending some additional resources that we were speaking about in the interview, so make use of them if you will. So now we're going to have a little look at the issue of loneliness. We did a poll and sent that out via our Facebook and newsletter, and had a little look at those and came back with some fairly interesting insights and some feedback on that. Loneliness and recovery. Okay, so thanks so much to everyone that took part in our loneliness poll. We had an excellent response via our Facebook group and April newsletter. That's well worth a read, by the way. The questions posed in the poll were taken from recognised methods of gauging loneliness in the community. For public health research, although very simple questions, they can give us a broad overview of the issue of loneliness, and in this case in our alumni community. We didn't gain any data on demographics such as age, gender, time in recovery, and various other demographics. So it really is a snapshot, and we did this to make sure that you maintained your anonymity. I can never say that word. Obviously, mental health is a complex issue. We are barely denting the surface here. It's not an in-depth analysis. You can read more about loneliness. There's so much out there on the internet. I have a blog looking at loneliness in recovery, which will be linked in the show notes. So please feel free to have a nose at that. It's just my take on the issue and my own experience, and it includes what I hope are helpful ways for you guys to recognise the issue of loneliness, its impact on your mental health, and ways for you to work through it and change your perspective, and just, knowledge is power when it comes to these things. So I'm not going to bore you with every statistic that we got from the poll. But let's just take a look at the main points. It was interesting to me that even though most of you who responded recognised that should you need support or desire company, there are people that you can reach out to, some of you still feel lonely. So even though you know there's a support network out there, you still feel that emotion of loneliness. So let's break it down a little bit. 92% of you said that if you wanted company or to socialise, there are people you can call on. Okay. However, around a quarter of you indicated that you often feel you lack company, and this perhaps indicates an inability to reach out and simply ask for what we need. It's important to remember that we can often feel lonely in a room full of people. I think we've all had that experience, and sometimes I think we isolate because we are afraid of showing our vulnerability or of admitting we are feeling isolated. I can assure you that reaching out will help you feel better in the long run, even if it feels uncomfortable at the time. The same is true with asking for help or support in time of need or crisis, which is especially important in recovery. 96% of you said you do have people that would be able to help you, but 1 in 5 of you, that's 20% of you, always or often feel lonely. And I think, again, this discrepancy indicates that just because we know should a crisis hit, we would in theory have support, it doesn't mean we don't feel lonely or find it difficult to express that need for support. A quarter of you admitted that you often feel left out. And I think this reflects the fact that perhaps in our past we've experienced things like exclusion or had that feeling of not quite fitting in. Being the black sheep is something I hear a lot about in the rooms. We all have different life experiences and traumas, but recovery, it enables us to break free, not only from addiction, but also that feeling of being on the outside looking in. We get to create a new narrative and take part in life. Now, I'm not saying that we wake up one day and all our insecurities have suddenly gone away and we are cured. But at least we can use the tools we have and the connections we do make in recovery to begin to feel like we can fit in again. And I think that is a process. And again, my experience only. You may have a different take or a different experience of your own, but for me, the longer I'm in recovery, the less loneliness is an issue for me, because I understand that it is an emotion, and I don't have to give it more power than it already has. And even if it's uncomfortable to reach out and it doesn't feel right and it feels a bit awkward, actually 100% of the time I feel better for doing so. I never regret reaching out or going to a meeting or calling another sober friend, reaching out to my partner, whatever it might be. And I am quite, even in recovery, I'm quite prone to isolating myself rather than reaching out to my support network. It's a behaviour that I developed in my early childhood. And again, I'm only talking about my experiences because I'm sure they resonate a lot with people out there listening to this. My childhood needs were not met, and it's something that I do still have to work really hard on, to recognise those old child state behaviours. The sponsor is always telling me off for not calling her enough, and I can withdraw from my partner when I'm run down, or addict brain is online and I'm stuck in my own head. Now, thankfully, she allows me my space when it is needed, because sometimes I do just need a little bit of space, and that's okay. But I kind of get a gentle poke when it's time for me to come out from my hiding and actually spend some time together. We're all different. Some of us need a lot of company, others are more content being alone. But perhaps we can be more aware of when we are starting to feel isolated and reach out to someone when we start to get in our own way. After all, the opposite of addiction is connection. You've been listening to Screaming on the Inside with me, Celeste. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Everyone, take care out there, and remember, if you need support in your recovery, you can find a load of information and contact points for us at UCAT, ukat.co.uk. You can also call us directly on 0203 949 6585. We're here to offer non-judgmental support should you need to reach out about any element of your recovery. Have a look in the show notes for today's episode as well. We will have those resources, a link to the Facebook group and a link to my blog. It's been an absolute pleasure as ever, and take care till next time.